Yeah, so we're looking forward to showing you or teaching you a little bit more about some of the different sales happening around the country. So yeah, the sale that we're going to be taking a look at here was one that occurred here for Kent County, Delaware. We like to break down sales that have already occurred, because sometimes we find great deals that have occurred there. We find opportunities. Sometimes we find places where people paid too much. But Delaware itself is classified as a redemption deed state. So what that means is the full ownership rights aren't granted to the deed holder until the redemption period has expired. Now, the redemption period in this case, though, in Delaware, tax deeds are given a 60-day redemption period. So it's a short redemption period. And that's the period when the court has approved the sale of the deed, and then not on the auction date. So the court approval usually occurs within a week of the auction.
Yeah, exactly. Now, one thing that's kind of interesting, and we see this in some other states, is that the tax sales are going to be held on site, but they're also going to include both tax auction properties and bank sale properties. So as you're looking at the list, you'll see some of the properties that are tax sales, some that are, bank sales. But in some counties, occasionally, like Kent County, for example, will sometimes have just a tax sale. So it'll kind of depend on the individual county. Sometimes they'll mix them up. Occasionally, they'll just do one sale that they call a monitor sale. But properties that don't redeem within that short redemption period, or that do redeem, get paid a 15% penalty. So if it redeemed the very next day, you would at least make at least 15% off of your bid amount.
Yeah, or even if it redeems within that 2 months, it's not a very long redemption period. So redemption, a 15% flat rate of return on your money is pretty good for that 60-day time window. If you paid $10,000 for a property and it redeemed within that 60 days, you'd basically get back 11,500. Which that's pretty good. That's not bad at all. Now they also use a premium bidding system here. So essentially, just like regular auctions, you basically bid the property up. The highest bidder is the one that wins. So let's go and check out this sale.
Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at a couple of different properties that sold in Kent County, starting with this list right here. So the first property we're going to look at is this one here on Boggs Run. It sold for $260,000. Kind of looking over there, you can kind of see what the neighborhood looks like. So definitely in a newer neighborhood.
Yeah, it doesn't looks like a newer construction here.
Yeah. Now here is actually the value of it at $448,000. Now these are obviously going to be older photos, but it does give us an indication. This is a pretty decent house. They have double condensing units there.
Yeah, well, it's pretty big. It's nearly 2,500 square feet. It's a 5-bedroom, 3.5 bath. So it does have tremendous value, especially and it's got an unfinished basement as well. That somebody could take advantage of. So yeah, they picked it up for what did they pay? About roughly half of a value for it, maybe slightly more than that. And it also looks like it was built. When was this built? It has to be newer. Yeah, 2013.
Yeah. So really a pretty good deal when you're looking at what they picked up. So it was picked up for 280.
260, right?
Yeah, 260, worth 450 probably. Even though even if you were to put in 50 or even $100,000, which I don't think you would need that, but even if you did, you could still make $100,000 to $200,000 on this deal.
Yeah, that's crazy. At 260, they're going to be able to make an easy 150,000 on it. It's probably not going to need much of anything, and so they could probably get, turn around and sell it here without doing much to it, and be able to make good money on it. That's also, this property would be an ideal rental as well. You can just tell from things like the neighborhood on it, and at the price they paid, at 260. It's going to be an awesome rental because it's going to bring in, what are they going to rent it out for? Probably $3,000 a month. It has the potential to bring in, $40,000, $50,000 a year just by itself. So you could probably pay itself off within 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah, in fact, here's some of the kind of the county information on it. Even the county has it valued at 367, and the market value is quite a bit stronger. So we're just looking at the assessed value there. Kind of interesting looking at some of the transfer information, or if there's any type of permits that were done on it, the map. So the county record information is pretty good, but overall, I think that picking up a newer property like that, worst case scenario, you're going to make 15% on your money. In this case, they were able to acquire it.
Yeah, well, and generally, if you're going to pay a high percentage of value, you want it to be on something that you know is not going to need a lot of work, like a newer property, like something built in 2013 would certainly qualify, for that, because it's only 12 years old. So, what exactly are you going to have to repair? It's not going to need a full rehab. But even if it did, you could certainly afford it. But I think at this price, though, really, I mean, what it would be ideal is I would just sit on it. I would rent it out and just sit on it, because I mean, unless you had to have the money here for it right away, because you bought that at such a good price that it'd be worth it to refinance it here later, and just hang on to it, because it's a cash cow, and you picked it up at half of what it's valued at, so you're already into it with a couple $100,000 in equity.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. This next one is this property right here. What's kind of interesting about it is it sold for 22,000. Now it's this lot right here, but you can kind of see it. We can look at the map here. But what's interesting is they've got it for sale right now at $50,000, and they just put it on. They put it on about 115 days ago. So actually, they just dropped that price because it was $59,000 today or yesterday. So they just dropped this down, $9,000, and they're just trying to kind of double their money on it. But it is kind of interesting because looking at it, it looked like it was picked up by a real estate agent. And in fact, I noticed a few of these properties were picked up by real estate agents. So real estate agents are buying these properties and turn around and making a decent profit off them.
These are also examples of some of the types of land that you can go after, in certain areas. And what is probably going on here, you can see that you've got other, mobile homes there in the area. This is probably a good usable lot, and has the potential there. It probably has utilities there available and some things like that, which is, there's a limited number of places where people can put that kind of thing. And so, yeah, I think it's interesting here that for a quarter acre lot, it might 22,000 might seem like a lot of money to pay for it, but you can see here how they're going. They're basically, their aim is to double up their money on it, and they're about 3 months into it.
Yeah. Here's another property. It's this property right here that sold for it's 58 grand right here. And so you can't really see much of it from here.
Oh, the truck is blocking it. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, but what's interesting is they have it for sale right now for 145,000. So they just picked this up. They waited the 60 days, and you can see that they've done nothing to it. Sold as is. So they haven't even gone through quiet title yet.
Yeah,
Make no guarantees regarding the condition. Needs a complete renovation.
yeah,
And
they
so
haven't even cleaned it out or anything. Which, I mean, and it looks kind of like it. Those kind of look like vinyl windows on it. It looks like maybe it's been rehabbed at some point. If it's an older property, how old is it?
it was built in 1954.
So yeah, it's probably been rehabbed to a degree. It'd be kind of interesting to take a closer look at it and see how much stuff, see what exactly has been replaced.
Yeah, in fact,
They didn't pay that much for it.
Let me see real quick if.
I mean, they basically stand to make $100,000 on it right now, the way they've got it priced, right?
Yeah, they paid 58. They're trying to sell it for 145. They just listed it for sale. I guess it was just had those same photos on it with the same thing. But 3-bedroom, 1-bath. This is a property they could easily redo themselves. Or it's a property. See, here you see the seller or is the listing agent.
It's already been viewed 569 or 500 something, like 559 times here, and it's entry level housing. It's only been 12 days on Zillow, and so it's entry level housing. They probably don't think they need to do anything to it in order to get it sold at that price point, because it's such a good deal. There's probably a limited number of things you can get there for under 150,000.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they picked it up for 58 grand. They're just selling it as is, no strings attached for 145 and are going to make a pretty good profit on it. I mean, even the county values it at 166. So looking at the market value on this is probably closer to 200 to 225.
Wow. Yeah, they did really well with this purchase. In fact, they did so well with the purchase that they don't need to do anything else with it. They can sell it just like it is and make 100,000 on it. And that's impressive. If you can turn around and make 100,000 off just nothing more than your purchase, you've done really well.
Yeah, it looks like they did a renovation in
95.
1995.
So maybe that's probably when it got the vinyl windows in. It was in 95. So they're not new. It wasn't a new renovation here, but at least it was updated from the 1954 stuff that it had.
Yeah. So we'll look at this last one here on this page, sold for 20,000. We'll go through it kind of a little bit quicker. It's this lot right here. I was thinking that might be utility, but it's not. The county's valuing it at 135,000.
It's about a half-acre lot.
Yeah, so they picked it up for 20, valued about 135. Yeah, it's about a half acre.
Yeah, it's valuable land.
Yeah, 142. What's interesting is here they've got it for sale for 59, as is. So one thing that's kind of interesting is I'm seeing a lot of people here that are just buying it at the tax sale and then selling them as is. We've looked at three different properties now that are essentially doing the same thing, where they're picking it up and they're turning around and selling it as is, where, if that's a great way to flip it quickly and make some money on it. But you could also go through quiet title and then sell it for, closer to what its value is. But they're still making, I mean, he bought it for 20 or she bought it for 20, selling it for 59. Let's say it sells for 50. They still made 30 grand.
Well, and they more than doubled up their money. I mean, to go from 20 to 50 is great. And it's that step. I know we have a lot of students, that are trying to build up their working capital, and that's a great step to take, where you can afford a $20,000 property and suddenly you can afford a $50,000 property now.
Yeah. So the next one here we'll look at is this one that sold for 102. Oh, sorry. Yeah. I don't know where this list is at. Let me look. Make sure I got the right list. Huh. It's not on that list. I might just show it here like this anyway. So here's the property. Oh, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong sold for. Okay, sorry. I know where I'm at now. So this one sold for 4,000, and it's this lot right here, valued at 48,000. It's this lot kind of all through right here, valued at 48, and it was picked up for 4 grand. So it was pretty cheap.
It looks kind of like a bigger lot. How big is it?
I'll have to check again. We can go back here in a second. It's kind of this area right here, picked up for cheap. They've got it valued at 80,000.
Wow, it picked it up for 4,000. That's just cheap.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of pretty cheap one.
Oh, and a lot of room, you could move. There's a lot of room to move on the value there on selling price. When you pay that low of a price, I mean, they value it at 80,000. You could probably wholesale that property for a great deal of value. Might be high enough that it'd be worth taking it through quiet title, though.
Yeah. Yeah, I think some of these could be. This one was picked up for 26 grand. It's another piece of land right here. it's pretty big as well. They're valuing it at 72 grand. So, the county's putting some value on it. It's, over half an acre. You know, valuing it around 65. So we'd have to do a little bit more research and see if it's closer to the 72 or 75.
Yeah. So they paid a little bit more for it. They paid 20,000 for this one.
Yeah. Kind of going through, kind of all of them here. And this one here sold for 44,000. We can see that it's 2 acres.
Seeing how they valued the land here so far.
What's interesting though is they built a home on it already.
Oh wow. So the buyer must have been the one that built the home.
And well, I'll show you here in this. Look, I believe if I go back here and look, I think that it sold. The investor sold it to the builder after the sale. So it's this lot right here. If we go to the transfers, we can see that it was picked up right here for 44,000 by the investor at the tax sale. That was what we were looking at. Then they went and sold it for 105 to this 5-star builders.
And they put a house on it and then sold it for 504.
Yeah, exactly. So someone bought the lot for 105. They built a home, and it's this home right here that has a sold price of 500. Yeah, 504.
So for this lot initially sold for how much?
It sold for 44,000, and then they turned around and sold it,
for 100.
For 105. And
Yeah.
then this builder built on it, afterwards.
That's kind of an ideal lot in terms of like a building lot or a construction lot. So it seems like they paid up for it, but they still more than doubled their money on the sale of it. So they started off with 40,000 here and basically ended up with 105. That's pretty good.
Yeah. So I mean, they paid up for it, but I think that these are some smart investors. They've done their margins, and I mean, we've seen all of these properties already being put back onto the market and being relisted for sale.
Yeah, I mean that sold really quickly too. If we think about it, it sold twice within 6, 8, 7 months. And did they build the house? They must have built that house crazy fast.
Yeah, well, that auction was from. They
Oh,
didn't
I see.
have.
April of last year. I see.
Yeah, exactly. So they didn't have any new 2026 lists, so I had to start in December of 2025, and so that's kind of what we're looking through
But
here.
even for a year though, even for like a year's period of time, that is a lot. That's 2 transactions and the whole building of a house. That's a lot to get done.
Yeah, now here's that 102,000 that I couldn't find last time. This one here on Hazelwood. So it sold for 105. It's about valued at about 252. So they paid for this property as well, but pretty clean home. Still some pretty good profit margins on it at $150,000 potential. So you could still put 50 grand into it and do pretty well with it.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, all these have just been excellent purchases. And it's Delaware. That's what's kind of interesting about it is that not the first place that people would think of, for tax sale opportunities, but every property that we've looked at here has been a deal where an investor has been able to, more than double up their money. In most of these cases, they're able to make excellent profits on it. Sometimes, sometimes more than 100,000 in profit for just the purchase, nothing else.
Yeah, well, and kind of what we're going over, right now, these are kind of the ones that people paid up for. So I wanted to go through and look at some of the best deals and then also kind of ones that people paid up for, but you can see why they did. There's still some pretty good profit margin. This one sold for 177.
Nice.
It's this home. And I mean, they paid a lot for it. You know, it's valued at about 291. You know, kind of looking at the market value, these homes right next to it are quite a bit more valuable, you know, by an extra 60 grand. So I think you could, because these are very similar homes, I think you could refresh this home and give it a lot newer look to it that would bring up that value. But you're still looking at buying it, you know, at 60 cents on the dollar, and putting some rehab into it to get, you know, closer to 325.
Yeah, it's an excellent purchase. So again, yeah, this is another property too that they could turn around and sell if they want, or they could just rent a property like that out. It's already in a nice neighborhood. You know, they could get it set up for renting and have it paying itself off within 3 years probably, and would just be a cash cow from that point forward. You know, unless they wanted to, you know, they could cash out of it. They could do whatever they wanted with that.
Yeah, now this one's kind of interesting because it looks like it's boarded up and they paid quite a bit for it at 173. You know, I'm not sure. You can kind of see where there's some stuff there. I'm not sure how new this is. It looks like it's maybe 6 months old, maybe less than that. It doesn't have that worn look, but it's definitely been boarded up. You'd look into some more of the history. I think they really kind of bought this because of this neighborhood, because the homes are valued more as well. They're doing this one at 300,000. So again, they paid up for it, but there's still $130,000 worth of flexibility, and so I think they're planning on making between 50 to 80,000 on it.
And most of these sales that we're looking at here are sales that were conducted last year, last April and May, I think, are the dates that we're looking at. That's the latest that they have listed here. So yeah, these were April 29th, you know, is when they had their sale here last year. And again, they may be holding their auctions here around the same time here, or they may have just got done holding their auction, the latest ones, and they don't have the new results up yet.
Yeah, they've had several auctions since then. They just don't have the results up yet. So, you know, this is kind of an interesting one, sold for 47,000, and it's this piece of land right here, but it actually kind of goes back quite a ways. It goes back all the way to right here. So it's over a half an acre. I picked it up for 47, and it's worth about 176,000. And I noticed that there was people building new homes, or even you could even put a duplex on this.
Yeah.
And we'll look at one more and then I'll flip it back to you. It's these two lots right here. So one sold for 64. Oh, not lots, they're actually condos. One sold for 64 and the other one sold for 61,000. And so it's located in this park right here. And, you know, I couldn't find the 2B2, but here's the 2B1, which was the first one. And, you know, the second one's the exact same price. So they picked them up for 61 and 64, and they're
Wow.
valued at about 177, 175.
Yeah, they paid a third of value for these properties here, and these are, you know, I mean, this is built in '86. You know, it's a nice property here. Again, same thing you could do with this condo here, where if you wanted, you could just rent it out. You know, you could cash out, sell it immediately. You know, like maybe they're doing, but you could also just rent it out and use it. You know, or you know, receive the income from that property here until you essentially have it paid off. With which how much they're into it at 60,000, that's not very much. You know, that's going to pay itself off within a couple of years again.
Yeah, they paid about a third of value for a commercial condo that has good rental value. You know, can be valued at the low end 169 to as high as 205 for these units, and that's going to be based off of the sales prices. So, you know, for just over 60 grand, those are some pretty good condos that were picked up. I believe it's there in this building right here. You know, for a cheap price, like Shade said, you could automatically rent them out, or you could turn around and flip them. We'll look at one last one, and I'll throw it back to you. It's this one right here that sold for 296. I thought, man, that is a lot. You can see that we've got an address right here, and it's actually this home right here. Let me pull it up. I don't know. I don't have the link there. And they've currently got it for sale for $459. Now, what's kind of interesting, they bought it for $296. And in reading the notes here, the only thing they've added some paint and there's some new carpet. Other than that, this house is pretty much, looks like they've added some furniture, had one of those companies come in and add furniture too as well. But this is pretty much the condition that they got it. They just put in, this is kind of like a lipstick rehab on a nice property where they just added some carpet, did some paint, and the home was in such good shape that it didn't take a whole lot of work.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, yeah, they staged the property here is all they really needed to do here, and it looks great. It's probably going to sell for them, no problem. Did it already sell?
No, they've just listed it for sale. Let's see how long it's been.
2005 house too. It's not very old.
Yeah, 185 days, and I think that they've dropped the price on it. Yeah,
Not
so
that much though. You know, I mean,
yeah,
they've only dropped it by like
465.
$8,000. Yeah.
Yeah, but you know,
So
it may take 6 months to sell at the price that they're looking at, and they could be having offers in on it. But they're still would have to do the math. You know, I think that they probably put in 30 grand. You know, maybe less than that, maybe a little bit more than that. But there should still be able to make 130 or 140,000 off it, I think.
yeah, that's another great deal. It's surprising that, I mean, nearly all of the deals are pretty good deals and pick up at pretty good prices. I mean, at least when we're looking down the list, it's not like you see properties where they're, you know, somebody ate their shorts here, lost their shorts on it. It seems like across the board, people got good deals.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, really, not a bad area. So it's not an area you think of, but we do have students from there. And, you know, you can see it's a nice home at the end cul-de-sac. And, you know, you even have two kind of lots next to you that haven't had homes built there. So there is some good advantages to it. I'll go ahead and throw this back to you,